CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett is here with me in New York, while Nancy Cordes, with a bit of a plane to catch, joins us from the tarmac there at Westchester County Airport in White Plains. Nancy, to you first then. It was, to a degree perhaps, what we thought we might see heading in. One candidate very comfortable in the environment, in the setting. Another candidate looking perhaps to see where the moment took him, if you will. Then to an optical question with regard to demeanor, body language. What did you make of what you saw last night?
Well, I think we saw a more aggressive Hillary Clinton than her campaign had led us to believe we would see. They were saying in the days leading up to this debate that she was going to be talking mostly about her economic vision, that she wanted to put out a positive vision for the country, explain to people what she wanted to do, and there was definitely some of that. But she was also prosecuting the case against Donald Trump from the very first minutes of this debate. She went after him on everything from the way he got his start in business, to his business practices, to his tax returns, to his birther movement, to his lack of a plan to go after ISIS. I mean, every single issue she sort of turned around and made it a critique of Donald Trump. And the reason for that was twofold. First of all, she wanted to make the argument that he isn't who he says he is when it comes to his business prowess or his plans for the country, but also she did want to try to get under his skin. And the Clinton campaign argues that he took the bait every single time, no matter how small that bait was, and that every time he had a decision to make about whether he was going to defend himself or talk about his plans, he always chose to defend himself.
Major, watching that split screen especially, right. there were often times where Donald Trump was leaning into his microphone while she was, usually, to Nancy's point, speaking about him. He did seem rankled.
Well, look, if you remember the GOP primaries, Trump's facial expressions were almost a separate character in the entire process, and it was almost something you couldn't take your eyes off of. Very advantageous when there are 9 people or 7 people on stage other than Trump. Less of an advantage when you have this frozen split screen and you see the instantaneous reaction on that elevated, august stage. A couple other points about what Nancy just said. First of all, the Clinton campaign for its entire history has been very adroit at telling reporters one thing and strategically knowing they're going to do something completely different. The Trump campaign said he didn't prepare, and guess what? He didn't prepare. The way you know he didn't prepare is there was nothing that Donald Trump said in that debate last night. Not one single thing he hasn't said on the stump for months and months and months. He gave his impressionistic view of the world, his sort of large assessments of America in decline, an economy that is troubled by globalization, that needs protectionist trade policies. He was very aggressive on that point, and that everything else needs his unique brand of solutions. Very few details about what those solutions are, exactly like on the campaign trail. So the Clinton campaign did a bait and switch as to what they were tactically intending to do. Trump said, you know what, we're not going to prepare, and we're going to go in and do what we've always done. And that's exactly what they did. So for Trump supporters, decent night. I can tell you for those in the Trump inner circle, they're concerned because they know that sticking with that campaign rhetoric over 90 minutes in that forum simply isn't enough, and that under pressure over time, Trump will take the bait. The Clinton campaign wants this all-encompassing narrative that he always took the bait. He didn't. The first half of the debate, Trump was very restrained and held back. You could tell he wanted to get involved, but by the second half of the debate, he'd had enough.
You talk about the Trump inner circle. That, I mean, it seems a little late to be concerned. This was really the moment. Upwards of 100 million people getting ready to watch. Where was that concern?
There is no
48
proof.
Hours ago?
Look, the iron truth of the Donald Trump campaign is there is only one truth, the truth that Donald Trump is willing to accept. There are no other truths. And until he accepts that truth, it doesn't matter. Look at what he thought about his campaign after the Democratic convention, when the numbers were going down and he was saying he's not creating self-inflicted wounds, not picking stupid fights, even though his advisors were telling him over and over, you are. Then he finally looked at the data, accepted a new truth, and adapted to a new reality. Until Donald Trump does that, it doesn't matter what anyone else says or how they come to him with what you should or shouldn't do. There was not a single person in that campaign who could have told Trump, prepare harder, work harder, focus more. Until he experiences it himself, it doesn't become reality.
Interestingly, Nancy, meanwhile, we didn't see all that many attacks on Secretary Clinton in areas where arguably she is most vulnerable, with regard perhaps to the Clinton Foundation, with regard to the email scandal, other than Donald Trump offering it as a quid pro quo. Does the campaign feel as though on fronts such as those, they perhaps dodged something of a bullet?
Sure. I mean, he never even brought up what is her biggest self-inflicted wound to date in this campaign, calling half of his supporters a basket of deplorables. He's been tweeting about the basket of deplorables. He even said that he was going to be sicking his basket of deplorables on fact-checking her on Twitter, and yet he didn't bring it up in the debate when he had this huge forum and this unprecedented audience. He left it alone. And the Clinton camp would say, once again, that that's all about preparation, that these moments don't just happen. Yes, you can think of some things on the fly, but you practice and practice and practice, and then when the moment presents itself, you're prepared for it. Case in point, when he hit her for not doing as many campaign events as he had last week, and she immediately stopped and said, well, I think that Donald is attacking me for preparing for this debate. Well, yes, I did, and guess what else I prepared for? I prepared to be president, and that's a good thing. That is not a line that spontaneously occurred to her last night, and it was probably her most effective line of the night. That is a line that she worked through with her campaign team because she knew that he would most likely come after her for having a lighter schedule recently than he has had, and they figured out a way to turn that to their advantage.
Yeah, and Major, there were moments on Hillary Clinton's face where it was almost like it was an Easter egg hunt, and you could see when she saw that she'd found another egg.
Right. She prepared, but she didn't over-prepare, because guess what? When you have those moments, no one says, oh gosh, you over-prepared. What they say is, no, you landed a punch. You took the moment and redirected it. And that's what a lot of these debates are. And that's why you prepare. You don't prepare just to be a wind-up doll that spouts talking points. You prepare to adjust, shift things, shift focus, and get back on top of the game if you're losing. And Trump had moments, had opportunities, couldn't find the way to do that.
Get you out of here on this one, the both of you then. Dan Senor, the former advisor to Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, tweeted last night, Clinton did something tonight that no journalist has been able to do, surgically take him apart on his tax return. She explained why it matters. After once again stonewalling last night as to why he has not released his tax returns, it seemed by opening the door, by saying, well, if you do this, then I will, Major, he seemed to advance the question further than it had ever gotten before.
Right, because it's now transactional. Now, it's a fictional transaction. Hillary Clinton's not going to produce those emails if they're producible in the first place. So it was a phony transaction, but it's opening it up to a sort of negotiation, making it part of a political give and take instead of, I'm running for the highest office in the land. I have an obligation to tell the American people what my taxes are and what the underlying finances of my life, complicated as they are, actually are revealed to be. Trump's still not there. And that is a weakness. It remains a weakness. And his steadfast refusal to release those tax returns, the Trump campaign say that's only obsession for reporters and Hillary Clinton backers, which they say are oftentimes the exact same thing. They say with a nasty tone in their voice. It's still an issue. And the fact that you don't have a better answer and are willing to make it semi-transactional tells the country you're not comfortable with the position you have, and it may become a liability.
And it certainly would suggest, again, perhaps a lack of preparation, not being prepared for what was going to be something discussed.
That you know is coming at you.
Indeed.
And the lasting damage, really, Josh, from that exchange was that after she laid out the 4 possible reasons that Donald Trump might have for not releasing his taxes, and she said, maybe it's the fact that we'll find out he doesn't pay any taxes. And he said, well, that would just be smart if I hadn't paid any taxes. And, that is a message that isn't going to go over well with Americans who make far less money and do pay taxes, especially when you are arguing, one of your central arguments in your campaign is that taxes are too high and that you need to give the wealthy a tax cut. So this is a comment that I'm sure you are going to see in Clinton campaign ads throughout the fall, because they feel that this is a real weakness of Trump's, that he doesn't play by the rules. Now, could he have turned it around and sort of gone after her over her emails more aggressively and said, you don't play by the rules? What's the deal with these emails? Why'd you set up the server? He started to make that case, but once she made that sort of succinct apology and fell on her sword, which is something that she was trying to make the case that Donald Trump doesn't do over his taxes or anything else, he kind of dropped it, and the moderator never followed up.
Yeah, it was a fascinating moment, certainly on a night filled with them. Nancy Cordes, I know you're on your way across that tarmac to that big old plane, and Major Garrett's on his way to somewhere. Thank you. Thank you both.
Good to be with you.
You're welcome.